Imagine a time when life moved at the pace of muscle, animal power, and the unpredictable forces of nature. Then, profoundly, everything changed. From the mid-18th to the mid-19th century, a monumental transformation swept the globe, known as the Industrial Revolution. This era shifted human societies from agrarian and handicraft economies to those dominated by industry and machine manufacturing. It laid the very foundations of our interconnected, technologically advanced modern world. But what ignited this unprecedented change, and why did it begin in Great Britain? It wasn't merely a technological revolution, it was a fundamental social, economic, and cultural upheaval. Innovations in farming dramatically increased food production, supporting a larger, healthier population. Several critical preconditions converged in Great Britain, making it the undeniable birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. First, an agricultural revolution significantly preceded and facilitated industrial changes. This practice, while boosting agricultural output, often displaced numerous small farmers from their traditional lands. It had vast deposits of coal, the primary fuel for steam engines, and rich reserves of iron ore, indispensable for building machines. The enclosure movement consolidated small land holdings into larger, more efficient farms. These displaced workers migrated to rapidly expanding towns and cities, forming a ready and eager workforce for burgeoning factories. A growing and influential middle class eagerly provided the capital and drive for new ventures, and the patent system incentivized innovation. And vast, captive markets for its manufactured goods, fueling mass production demand. Second, Britain possessed abundant natural resources essential for industrialization. The demand for cloth was soaring, but traditional hand spinning and weaving methods were painstakingly slow. Geographically, Britain held distinct advantages. As an island nation, it enjoyed natural protection from continental wars. Its numerous navigable rivers and accessible deep-water ports facilitated efficient transport of heavy raw materials and finished goods. This created a new problem. Weavers demanded far more yarn than hand spinners could produce. This invention is widely credited with establishing the very first true factory system. Third, Britain benefited from an exceptionally stable political and economic climate. Its constitutional monarchy provided a predictable legal system. Strong property rights and a well-developed banking system encouraged capital investment. Finally, Britain's extensive colonial empire provided both a reliable source of raw materials, such as cotton. The first and most significant wave of industrialization was overwhelmingly centered on the textile industry. This created an urgent need for technological breakthroughs to increase production dramatically. Production moved from decentralized homes to large, purpose-built factories. A series of brilliant inventions then revolutionized textile manufacturing. In 1733, John Kay invented the flying shuttle, which dramatically sped up weaving. Watt's engine was far more efficient and adaptable. Factories could be built anywhere coal was available. This imbalance drove further invention. In 1764, James Hargreaves developed the spinning jenny, allowing one worker to spin multiple threads at once. A few years later, in 1769, Richard Arkwright developed the water frame, a water-powered spinning machine that produced strong yarn. Crucially, the water frame was too large for homes, necessitating specialized buildings and a centralized workforce. In 1779, Samuel Crompton combined elements of both the spinning jenny and the water frame to create the spinning mule, producing fine and strong yarn in vast quantities. Abraham Darby revolutionized iron smelting in the early 18th century by successfully using coke, a purified form of coal, instead of charcoal. The final piece of the textile puzzle was solved by Edmund Cartwright with his power loom in 1785, which fully mechanized weaving, drastically speeding up cloth production. Across the Atlantic, Eli Whitney, Escott and Gin 1793 in the United States further accelerated the textile industry by efficiently separating cotton fibers from seeds, vastly increasing the supply of raw cotton for British mills. These textile innovations led directly to the rise of the factory system. These factories brought together hundreds of workers, performing specialized tasks in a division of labor. This concentration of production dramatically increased output and efficiency. Turnpike roads, managed by trusts that charged tolls, facilitated faster and more reliable travel for coaches and wagons. The need to power these increasingly large and complex machines led to the next truly monumental technological leap, the development and widespread adoption of steam power. While Richard Trevithick built an early version, George Stephenson's rocket, built in 1829, proved the commercial viability of steam locomotives. Early steam engines, like Thomas Newcomen's early 18th century, were primarily used to pump water out of coal mines. However, it was James Watt's significant improvements to the steam engine in the 1760s and 1770s that truly unlocked its potential. This facilitated immense industrial growth by expanding markets and creating new jobs. It led to the rapid development of new industrial towns along the railway lines. This meant steam engines could now power a wide range of machinery in factories, no longer dependent on being located near rivers for water power. Steam engines became the tireless workhorse of the entire Industrial Revolution, driving looms, mills, and eventually, revolutionary new forms of transportation. The burgeoning demand for machinery, engines, and railway tracks firmly established the iron industry as a foundational pillar of industrial growth. New methods were needed to produce iron in larger quantities, more cheaply, and of higher quality. Accidents, injuries, and deaths were tragically common. Millions flocked from rural areas to burgeoning factory towns and cities in desperate search of work. Coke smelting produced cheaper, purer, and stronger iron. A new industrial working class, or proletariat, emerged, forming the vast base of the new economic order. Workers, including women and young children, toiled for incredibly long hours, often 12 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, with minimal breaks or safety precautions. Pollution from factories blackened the skies and poisoned waterways. In 1784, Henry Cort further advanced the industry with his puddling process, which converted brittle cast iron into strong wrought iron, ideal for manufacturing. These organizations sought to collectively bargain for better wages, shorter hours, and improved working conditions for laborers. The relentless demand for fuel for steam engines and for the rapidly expanding iron industry led to a massive and unprecedented increase in coal mining. Thinkers like Robert Owen championed utopian communities. Mines became deeper and more extensive, employing vast numbers of workers in extremely dangerous conditions, with constant risks of explosions, collapses, and respiratory diseases. The growth of industry and the sheer volume of goods being produced created an urgent need for dramatically more efficient and faster transportation systems. Early solutions included the construction of extensive canal networks. These artificial waterways provided a smooth and relatively cheap way to transport bulk goods. Road networks also saw significant improvement. However, the most profound and revolutionary change in transportation came with the development of the railways. The invention of the steam locomotive completely transformed land transport. The opening of the Liverpool and Manchester Railway in 1830, the world's first intercity passenger railway line, marked an epochal moment. Railways offered dramatically faster and cheaper transport for both goods and people, drastically reducing travel times and costs. Railway construction itself became a massive industry, employing thousands and spurring demand for coal, iron, and steel. The Industrial Revolution, while bringing unprecedented economic growth, also unleashed profound social transformations and created immense societal challenges. Urbanization was rapid and chaotic. This led to severe overcrowding in squalid and sanitary tenements, often without proper sewage or clean water. It was a period of both immense progress and profound suffering, of incredible human ingenuity and devastating exploitation. Disease, like cholera and typhus, spread rapidly through these densely populated and sanitary environments, claiming countless lives. Its transformative power continues to echo through our lives. Working conditions in factories and mines were notoriously harsh and dangerous. Wages were desperately low, barely enough to survive, and workers faced constant danger from exposed, fast-moving machinery. Child labor was widespread and deplorable. Children as young as 5 or 6 were employed in factories and mines, performing dangerous tasks. They were cheap to employ and easily controlled. Women also entered the factory workforce in large numbers, but typically earned significantly less than men for the same arduous work. The old social hierarchy based on inherited land began to shift. Conversely, the middle-class bourgeoisie expanded significantly, comprising factory owners, merchants, bankers, engineers, and professionals who benefited greatly from industrialization. Social problems escalated, including widespread poverty, increased crime rates, alcoholism, and a breakdown of traditional family and community structures. Early responses to these dire conditions varied. Some frustrated workers, notably the Luddites, expressed their anger by violently breaking machines, which they blamed for displacing their traditional skilled labor. Gradually, despite severe repression, trade unions began to form. Early government legislation, such as the Factory Acts, attempted to address some of the worst abuses, particularly concerning child labor, but their enforcement was often weak initially. These harsh realities also gave rise to new political ideologies, most notably socialism, which advocated for greater social justice and workers' rights. Later, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels developed their theories of scientific socialism and communism, arguing that the inherent contradictions of capitalism would inevitably lead to class struggle. From its origins in Great Britain, industrialization gradually spread to other parts of the world. In the early 19th century, it took root in continental Europe, first in Belgium, then France, and later in the German states. The United States began its industrialization in New England's textile mills, expanding significantly after its Civil War. Later, in the late 19th century, Japan underwent rapid, government-led industrialization during the Meiji Restoration, strategically adopting Western technologies. The long-term legacy of the Industrial Revolution is immense and continues to shape our world in countless ways. It led to unprecedented economic growth and a dramatic increase in living standards for many, creating the consumer society we recognize today. It fostered global interconnectedness through new trade routes and expanding international markets. However, it also brought severe and lasting environmental impact, including widespread pollution and resource depletion. It fundamentally restructured societies, creating modern class systems, powerful labor movements, and the enduring challenges of urban living. The continuous cycle of technological advancement became an ingrained characteristic of modern life, laying the indispensable foundation for all subsequent industrial and technological revolutions. It also led to the rise of the modern interventionist state, as governments increasingly grappled with the complex social and economic consequences of industrialization. The Industrial Revolution was a truly fundamental break from all previous human history. It redefined work, society, and our relationship with the environment, laying the irreversible groundwork for the interconnected, technological, and complex global society we inhabit today.